In your view, why do some veterans believe that claiming their disability benefits takes them away from other vets who may be worse off?
I'm not sure where that myth came from. I suspect that it may trace all the way back to the 1950s when VA had a pretty limited budget for veterans benefits, and there was a concern that, if John applied and got benefits, there wouldn't be any money left for Willie. But the VA has a huge budget, literally in the millions of dollars. And if there ever was a time when having one person apply and get benefits would preclude benefits for another person, that day has come and gone.
Welcome to the Victory Over VA podcast, a podcast about empowering veterans to overcome denied disability claims. Each week, we deliver critical insights to help you understand the disability process, veterans' benefits, and how to take control of your legal rights. Now here's your host, Attorney Francis Jackson.
Welcome to Victory Over VA, your guide to unlocking your VA disability benefits. This is our podcast, and if you're a veteran applying for benefits, subscribe to the latest developments in VA disability by listening to our podcast every week. Welcome. I'm Francis Jackson. This is Kristian Terrison, and we're from the law firm of Jackson and MacNichol, where we specialize in helping veterans get their VA disability benefits. So if I apply for benefits, that will take them away from someone who is more deserving. That is a recurring myth, unfortunately, but it's a myth. And who is this show for? Well, obviously it's for veterans, but it's also for those who care about veterans, spouses, children, other relatives, friends, and just folks in the community who want to support our veterans. So without further ado.
All right. So as you mentioned, the topic for the episode is that myth that VA benefits are somehow a zero-sum game, that one veteran getting benefits by necessity deprives another of those same benefits. So in your view, why do some veterans believe that claiming their disability benefits takes them away from other vets who may be worse off?
I'm not sure where that myth came from. I suspect that it may trace all the way back to the 1950s when VA had a pretty limited budget for veterans benefits, and there was a concern that, if John applied and got benefits, there wouldn't be any money left for Willie. But the VA has a huge budget, literally in the millions of dollars. And if there ever was a time when having one person apply and get benefits would preclude benefits for another person, that day has come and gone. So right now, the VA has the financial resources of the U.S. government behind it and can pay the veterans who are entitled to benefits. Interestingly, the VA carefully tracks how many veterans are getting benefits at any one time and projects the future entitlement to benefits. For example, they can tell you exactly how many World War II veterans are still getting benefits, and they have a projection for when those folks will die off and when those benefits will end. But it does not mean, and I can't underscore this enough for purposes of this episode, it does not mean that if those folks are getting benefits, you can't get them. It just doesn't work like that.
So just to be clear, there's not a finite pool of resources that VA disability benefits are paid out of, and when it's gone, it's gone?
Well, certainly there is a finite pool. It's the United States Treasury, but it's a pretty big pool. So far, nobody has ever managed to exhaust it.
You've never had a VA check bounce?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, knock on wood. How does the VA ensure that all eligible veterans receive the benefits they're entitled to regardless of other claims? You mentioned, they keep careful statistical records to be able to project what cohorts are going to be receiving what level of benefit payments, things like that.
Well, theoretically, each year, in their budget requests, they project the result of the current beneficiaries and the claims that they have in process. And based on their experience over time, they have a reasonable projection about, for any volume of claims, how many of those are likely to be granted, what the financial impact of that number of claims will be, and they can project that into the budget. Certainly, it's like any other human endeavor. It's not perfect, but it's close enough that by the time claims work their way through the system and get granted, there will be funds to cover them.
What would you say to a veteran who feels guilty or hesitant about applying for their benefits?
I would say you served our country, and part of the compensation for that service is entitlement to these benefits for the impact of your service on your ability to go forward and earn a living. The whole theory that underlies VA disability compensation is that the purpose of VA compensation awards is to compensate the veteran for loss of their earning capacity as a result of their service. So say hypothetically that you're a veteran and but for injuries you received in the service, you would earn $50,000 a year. The purpose of the VA benefits is to compensate you for the extent to which, because of your injuries or illnesses or whatever the service-connected condition we're talking about is, you're now only able to earn $40,000 a year. So theoretically, the VA is going to pay you the difference between what you should have been able to earn and what you actually are able to earn. It's a little more complicated than that because while the VA doesn't actually pay you an amount equal to the difference, you get an extra increment from the fact that you don't have to pay taxes on VA compensation benefits. So for example, if you get $10,000 a year in VA compensation and you're in a bracket where, with the typical American state and local taxes and federal taxes, you would pay roughly a third of your income, that $10,000 really is equivalent to the purchasing power of earning $15,000 because you don't lose that third to taxes. So it's a little complicated the way they do it, but the intention, the underlying intention, is to compensate a veteran for loss of ability to earn and to fill that gap in income.
Well, and I was thinking as you were giving your answer, you used the word entitlement. And these days, the word entitlement gets thrown around a lot in a negative context. People acting entitled to things that they have no right or claim to. But this is a very different situation where the veterans are quite literally entitled to these benefits. It was part of the deal, when they signed up, or, in the case of the Vietnam era, when they got
drafted.
signed up.
Yep.
Right. Now, how does the process of rating a disability ensure that each veteran is compensated according to their needs?
Sure. The VA uses what's called a combined rating table. And again, the theory underlying the combined rating for veterans benefits is that the intention is to compensate for loss of earning capacity. So the VA rating system allows for compensation ratings from 0 to 100. The idea being that the VA will look at the severity of your disabilities and adjust the compensation to attempt to provide a modicum of income that matches the loss you've suffered as a result of your VA-related, your service-connected disabilities or illnesses. So, for example, if you are rated at 50% for your service-connected condition, the benefit's around $1,500 a month. I don't remember the actual number. They change it every year, but call it that for hypothetical purposes. And then if you are rated for another disability at 30%, it doesn't get added in the typical way 50 plus 30 equals 80. So if you have half a dozen VA ratings, say you got one for 50%, you've got one for 10%, you've got a couple more for 10%, and another one for 20%. What they do is they take 100%, they take the largest one first, which is 50%, and then say your next one is 20%. Instead of saying it's 50 plus 20 equals 70, they say it's 50 plus 20% of the remaining 50%. And so that's actually around 16 or 15. I forget exactly what the math is without doing it out. And then if you got another 10% on top of that, it's 10% of what's left after that. So that the intention is to compensate you for the resulting loss of earning capacity from 0 to 100. And that's the thinking behind the combined ratings table.
So this is kind of an interesting question, but what impact does one veteran's disability claim have on the broader system of veterans' disability benefits?
Well, theoretically, it doesn't have any, but I suppose there are claims where you can argue that it opens a door to a new set of claims in that it's a new claim never been considered before, and if it's granted, then it sort of establishes a precedent for others. But theoretically, any one claim has no real meaningful impact across the system.
Well, and I think that's really what we're trying to drive home with that question, is that it's such a vast, administration, and there are so many veterans out there now, and they're prepared, the VA is prepared to pay benefits by the numbers they project. And, for an individual veteran to think that they're somehow, helping fix the backlog or something, or, that foregoing benefits is an altruistic gesture somehow, it really, it's a drop of water in the ocean.
Yeah, it's like throwing a pebble in the lake. You can't discern the effect. And it's just so negligible.
Yeah. And sort of on a related note, how does the VA prioritize and manage claims? I'm thinking in particular of the expedited options that are out there for veterans who may be in dire straits too.
Sure. Well, the baseline is that the VA takes claims in the order in which they were submitted. That's the base. For veterans who qualify, there may be circumstances where they can kind of jump the line. And the way that works, at the Board of Veterans' Appeals, for example, on the appeals, the board will consider several different factors in terms of expediting claims. If you are 75 years of age or older, they will expedite your claim. If you have a fatal diagnosis, they will expedite your claim. That's one that always makes me sad. There are so many of these claims that have been pending for so long that, unfortunately, a lot of these folks reach the point of being terminal while their claims are pending. It's just sad. But if you are homeless, the VA will expedite your claim. And finally, if you are in serious financial difficulty, the VA will expedite your claim. Now, that one has had different meanings over time, but effectively, currently, the only people I've seen that the VA expedites over financial issues are folks who have actually filed bankruptcy. But those are the theoretical categories that will move your claim ahead of others. And the sad part is there are enough of the claims in this category that even having your claim expedited does not mean it's going to happen overnight, because there are a bunch of other people ahead of you that have already been expedited. But nonetheless, it will significantly reduce the waiting time for them to act on your claim.
Can you discuss the ripple effects that a successful claim for disability benefits can have, not only for the veteran who receives the benefits, but for their families and that sort of thing?
Sure. Well, the ripple effects for an individual veteran are fairly obvious, but a couple of things along the way. If a veteran has a set of combined disabilities that reach the point where he or she is unable to work because of them, even if they are not at the 100% level, the VA has a special provision called TDIU, or total disability based on individual unemployability, that lets them treat the veteran as though he were disabled at the 100% rate and pay him at that rate, which is an important thing. And concomitant with that, they also allow and award of educational benefits to the veterans' dependents, which can be a very important benefit for college-age children, entitling them to payment for their college expenses. Separate and apart from that, in terms of the ripple effect, a veteran who is rated at the 100% level for 10 years and dies, the spouse will automatically be eligible for what are called DIC benefits, DIC standing for Dependency and Indemnity Compensation, meaning compensation for the loss of the spouse. Those benefits are significantly smaller than the 100% benefits for the disabled veteran, but they are nonetheless an important benefit for many spouses who may not have a particularly large Social Security benefit to rely on. In addition, there are some other ancillary benefits. If a person is the surviving relative of a veteran and is below the age of 18 or below the age of 22 and enrolled in college, they may be entitled to benefits on the claim of the veteran. And there are some other family benefits. If a dependent parent outlives a veteran, they may be entitled to benefits. If a veteran who served in Vietnam, a male veteran who served in Vietnam, has a child with a condition called spina bifida, that child may be entitled to benefits. If a veteran has a child who became totally disabled before the age of 18, there are benefits. The VA refers to that as helpless child benefits, but those are ongoing, lifelong benefits for that disabled child. And for the relatively small group of women who served in Vietnam, primarily nurses, there are benefits for not only spina bifida, but other birth defects for children that they conceived. And those, again, are lifelong benefits. So all of those benefits are potentially available, as you were talking about, in the wider scope beyond the individual veteran himself or herself.
And so the individual veteran is only part of the equation when there are other family members implicated as well.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for tuning in. This has been another episode of Victory Over VA. We'll be back again next week. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it.
We'll see you then.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Victory Over VA podcast. Make sure to visit our website, veteransbenefits.com/podcast, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like this show, you might want to check out our free consultation to see how we can help you with your denied claim. Simply go to veteransbenefits.com and fill out the form. You fought for us. Now let us fight for you. And be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.